You are not weak. You are not broken. You are not cursed. You are simply untrained in the laws that govern success. And until those laws become your nature, you will continue to repeat the same cycle: new plans, short bursts, slow drifts, silent failure. Again and again, year after year. Not because you lack talent, but because you lack structure. Not because you lack passion, but because your identity still permits retreat. You don't need another goal. You don't need another mentor. You don't need another planner. You need one thing: to become the man who finishes. Every failure in your life has one invisible root. Your inner identity does not yet match your outer vision. You aim high, but live low. You speak big, but act small. You declare transformation, but still tolerate the old patterns that kill it. And until that identity is replaced, not wished, not hoped, but enforced, you will sabotage everything you set out to build. That is not misfortune. That is law. Let me tell you plainly, success is not a product of luck or motivation. It is the effect of invisible laws, and those laws never fail. They do not pity the undecided. They do not reward emotion. They respond only to definiteness. You must now decide. Will you continue living under the laws of drift and delay? Or will you install a new command within your soul, a law so strong that your entire being must obey it? You say you're tired of starting over. Then stop quitting. You say you want consistency. Then stop relying on feeling. You say you're meant for more. Then start living like the man who is trusted with more. Because I tell you this, you do not get what you wish for, you get what you become. And becoming is not a feeling. It is not a moment of hype. It is daily obedience to spiritual law. Let's confront the truth that few dare to face. You fail because you still give your emotions a vote. You wake up and ask, do I feel motivated? You begin a task and say, is this what I want right now? You delay your mission because the fire isn't burning like it did on day one. But let me teach you what no one taught you. Emotion is a terrible master. It changes, it lies. It contradicts your calling, and it cannot be trusted. The man who builds greatness does not ask how he feels. He commands how he acts. He obeys his aim like it is law, not suggestion. You say, but I'm not consistent. That is not the problem. You are simply not aligned. The man who is aligned with a higher identity does not need force. His actions flow from who he has decided to become. And here's your problem. You have not yet decided. You dabble in desire, but you do not enforce law. You admire discipline, but you do not install structure. You speak of transformation, but still flirt with your past self like he's welcome to stay. But the new man, the man who succeeds, the man who becomes unstoppable, he does not entertain drift. He does not ask for applause. He does not revisit his decision when pressure rises. He finishes because finishing is now part of his identity. It is no longer optional. It is who he is. Say this aloud with me. I finish what I begin. I walk in law. I am no longer available to drift. You must become unavailable to your old excuses. Unavailable to the story that says you've failed too many times. Unavailable to the voice that whispers you will never follow through. Because those voices are not your enemies, they are echoes of the man you used to be. And that man is now dead. You don't need more energy. You need enforcement. You don't need another start. You need structure. You don't need to wait until you feel ready. You need to become the man who acts before the feeling arrives. That is the secret of all high achievement. Action without permission. You must stop asking your feelings for approval. You must stop letting your past performances predict your future identity. The law does not care how many times you failed. It only responds to obedience now. The moment you install a new pattern, the old one loses power. But patterns do not die quietly. They demand repetition to be replaced. That is why you must now train your mind like a wild animal. Repeat your aim until it submits. Repeat your identity until your behavior has no other choice but to follow. Repeat your declarations until they become your default reaction. You say, I've tried this before. Of course you have. But did you enforce it? Did you build it into your day like it was your duty? Did you repeat it when it felt boring? When it felt like nothing was changing? Because that is when true transformation happens, in the absence of applause, in the silence of practice, in the repetition that no one sees. All success is born in law, and law is born in rhythm. Rhythm is what separates the man who occasionally tries from the man who permanently becomes. The man of rhythm does not drift. He does not wonder. He does not excuse. He walks as if the vision is already complete, and the world eventually must obey him. So now we install a new rhythm. Each morning you rise, you speak your aim aloud, not quietly, but like a man under divine command. You say, this is who I am. This is what I do. I finish. I do not drift. I do not wait. I obey law. You repeat this before you act. You repeat this when your faith feels thin. You repeat this until it becomes your rhythm. And in time, your identity will catch up. Your results will follow. Not because your outer world changed, but because your inner world was no longer available to defeat. You do not fail because you lack vision. You fail because you tolerate compromise. You compromise in thoughts. You compromise in environment. You compromise in the words you speak when no one is listening. And every compromise is a seed. And every seed, when watered, becomes identity. So now we plant only truth. You are no longer the man who breaks promises to himself. You are no longer the man who restarts. You're no longer the man who lives on hope and feelings. You are the man who is trusted with completion. Let the world say what it wants. Let delay come. Let difficulty knock. You do not obey emotion. You obey the voice of law. This is how the greats moved. They acted from decision, not feeling. When I sat with Andrew Carnegie, he did not speak like a man who hoped to succeed. He spoke like a man who had already become what the world had not yet seen. He walked in law. He moved with certainty. He built in silence, knowing the results must obey the identity already written. And so must you. Let this be the death of the old story. The death of the indecisive man. The death of the doubter. The death of the man who made promises in January and lived with regret by February. That story is over. And the new story begins today, not with hype, but with law. Not with emotion, but with enforcement. Not with dreaming, but with decision. Say it aloud now. I am the man who finishes. My actions serve my identity. My identity is law. This is how you finally succeed. Not by chasing more goals, not by collecting more strategies, but by deciding who you must become and refusing to become anyone else. Your mind is listening. Your spirit is waiting. Your future is watching. And it all begins the moment you stop starting over. The reason most men never rise is not because they lack the vision, but because they lack the law to sustain the vision. Vision is cheap. Law is expensive. Law demands sacrifice, discipline, repetition, and unwavering obedience. Every man says he wants success. But very few are willing to become the man success requires. You must now understand that what you are truly fighting is not the difficulty of the goal, it is the identity within you that still finds quitting acceptable. You do not need a new opportunity. You do not need better circumstances. You need a spiritual divorce from the old version of yourself. That version of you, the one who quits after a bad week, who negotiates when pressure rises, who forgets his aim the moment things get hard, that version must be buried. Not tucked away, not silenced for a season. Buried, burned and destroyed. Because as long as he has a voice, he will eventually speak again. You say, but I've made progress. That is not enough. Because the man who succeeds is not the man who starts strong, it is the man who finishes no matter what. You say, I've never been consistent. That is not your curse. It is simply the result of a mind that was never structured by law. Emotion is inconsistent. Motivation is inconsistent. But law never changes. And now, you must live by law. You must train your subconscious mind daily. You must speak your aim until your voice is the only one your spirit obeys. You must control your inputs, what you see, what you hear, who you listen to, because everything you allow is programming your identity. Do not fool yourself. You are always becoming something. You are either becoming disciplined or you are becoming distracted. You are either moving in purpose or you are drifting in passivity. You are either choosing your law or your law is being written by the world around you. So choose it now. Write your law. Declare it daily. Do not whisper it. Speak it with finality. Say, I am no longer moved by delay. I am no longer weakened by emotion. I act in law. I walk in rhythm. I finish what I begin. Repeat it until it becomes your nature, until quitting feels foreign, until delay feels like betrayal. Because the man who becomes one with his law cannot be broken by circumstance. You see, the most dangerous man is not the one with the most knowledge or talent or genius. It is the man who no longer needs to be motivated, the man who does not wait for signs, the man who moves with purpose when no one is watching, the man who has buried hesitation and replaced it with obedience. This man is not ruled by emotion. He commands emotion. He does not drift, he decides. He does not fear failure. He walks with completion in his hand long before it appears in his world. That is the man you must become. Let me be clear. The world does not care about your potential. It only responds to your execution. No one rewards a man for almost finishing. No one celebrates good intentions. And the law does not yield results to a man who makes excuses. It moves for the man who commands it with identity. This is why your results keep collapsing, because you're still relying on the surface to change without first correcting the structure beneath it. And the structure of your life is your self-image. What you say to yourself when you fail matters. What you speak into silence when no one is looking matters. What you tolerate from yourself when it's dark, when it's hard, when you are alone, becomes law. So now we write new law. Not suggestions, not ideas, not hopeful thoughts, law. And here is your new law. I complete my assignments. I do not retreat. I walk in obedience to the man I have chosen to become. Speak it every morning. Speak it before every decision. Speak it when you are tempted to go back to the old rhythm. And if you repeat it long enough, you will begin to believe it. And when belief becomes law, action becomes automatic. This is how you rebuild your life, not by force, but by spiritual repetition. You have trained your mind to drift. Now you must train it to complete. You have trained your identity to expect failure. Now you must train it to expect dominion. Say this aloud now. My past no longer has authority. My new identity commands my life. Because until you install a new inner authority, your life will obey the old one. So ask yourself right now, What identity are you enforcing? Are you enforcing the man who gets excited for 7 days and disappears on the 8th? Are you enforcing the man who works hard only when it feels good? Are you enforcing the man who restarts every month? Or are you enforcing the man who cannot live with incompletion? Because that identity will dominate your behavior whether you admit it or not. And now you must become militant about one thing, protecting the man you've decided to become. You must guard him. You must feed him with declarations. You must remove the voices, the distractions, the excuses that tempt the old version to come back. Because if you entertain that old voice for one day, he will try to run the show again. This is why the law must be daily. You must remind your mind every single morning. This is who I am. This is how I move. This is what I finish. And the repetition must continue even when you feel like a fraud, even when the results are invisible, even when the old patterns scream louder than your new declarations. Because transformation happens after the resistance. Discipline is born in silence. Identity is rewritten when no one claps. Belief is built when no one sees it. You must choose to obey your new law before it feels real, because acting in alignment with your future self is how you become him. You say, but I don't believe it yet. Then speak it until you do. You say, but I've never been that kind of man. Then decide to become him now, because there is no such thing as a success identity that just shows up. It must be written, spoken, and enforced. So speak this with force right now. My thoughts are ordered. My aim is definite. My finish is inevitable. This is how you start living as the man you were born to be. Not with more motivation, not with another clean slate, but with new law. Do not say, I'll try again. Say, I already am the man who finishes. Do not say, let's see what happens. Say, what I declare will obey me. This is how you replace drift with dominion. Drift begins when you forget who you are. It begins the moment you let feeling outrank identity. It begins the moment you give your current mood permission to override your long-term mission. But now, you are no longer available for drift. You have declared war on that version of you. And the new you has written a law of completion, identity, and repetition. And if you enforce it, your life must follow. Let this be clear. Your current reality is not your fate. It is the echo of your current identity. Change your identity and your results will surrender. Enforce your law and your life will align. You do not need to ask if you're capable. You must ask, are you committed? You do not need to ask if it will be easy. You must say, it is already done because I finish what I begin. Let this law echo in your mind. I no longer restart. I rise daily. I obey the law I have written. That is your foundation now. And from this day forward, your life is no longer a string of false starts. It is a straight line to completion. You are no longer allowed to play with destiny as if it were a game. You are not here to experiment. You are here to execute. You are not here to make more promises. You are here to fulfill the ones you've already spoken in silence. The ones you whispered to yourself in tears, the ones your future is waiting for you to honor. I tell you now, the most spiritual act a man can perform is to complete what he begins. Because the world does not need another starter, it needs a finisher. And the finisher is not a man who never struggles. He is simply the man who has made struggle irrelevant to his identity. He no longer needs to feel powerful. He obeys powerfully. He no longer asks, is this the right moment? Every moment becomes the right one. He no longer hopes for clarity. He creates it by moving with conviction. You have waited long enough. Waited for motivation. Waited for momentum. Waited for validation. Waited for the old feelings to return before you acted like the man you once envisioned. But hear me. Feelings are not leaders. Feelings are followers. You act first. You enforce first. You move first. And when you do, the feelings come, not as guides, but as servants to the new law you've installed. This is what separates the man who transforms from the man who only dreams. Dreams without law are delusion. Desire without structure is spiritual drift. Faith without discipline is noise. So now we burn the old contract. The one that says you only move when it feels right, the one that says you're allowed to break your rhythm for a good enough excuse, the one that keeps you restarting every season of your life, that contract has cost you too much, and it ends today. From this moment on, your decisions are final. Your declarations are commands. Your identity is not up for negotiation. You have already spoken it into law. Now you must become the man who obeys it. Say this aloud now. My law is sealed. My identity is active. My path is straight. I finish what I begin, because success is not granted to the man who asks. It is obligated to the man who commands. You are no longer interested in progress. You are now possessed by purpose. You are no longer swayed by emotion. You are now structured by law. And this is the highest calling of any man, not to react to the world, but to command it by first commanding himself. I tell you plainly, the most powerful tool you possess is not your talent, it is your decision. Not a soft decision, not a temporary decision, but a decision so final that nothing inside or outside of you can contradict it. Every man who built an empire, every man who changed history, began not with talent, but with decision. Lincoln decided, Carnegie decided, Ford decided, and when they decided, they buried their excuses. They never reopened the discussion. They never paused to check the weather. They never asked for approval. They moved forward because moving backward was no longer an option. That is what you must install in your spirit, irreversibility. Say it again. I do not revisit decisions. I do not negotiate my purpose. I finish what I begin. Because repetition is not just strategy, it is spiritual warfare. Every time you repeat your law, you kill the voice of your former self. Every time you speak your aim aloud, you weaken the grip of drift. Every time you enforce your rhythm, you teach your subconscious to trust your voice again. Do not underestimate this. Your mind is always listening. And what you say daily becomes what it builds. So what have you been building? Have you been rehearsing indecision? Have you been repeating your excuses until they became law? Have you allowed your silence to write your identity for you? Then now is the time to speak a new command. My word is law. My action is non-negotiable. My future is sealed by my rhythm. That is how you restore spiritual authority. Not by praying for easier circumstances, but by becoming a man who acts as if the outcome is already guaranteed. Because the man who finishes is not looking for permission. He moves as if everything he needs is already obeying him. And it eventually does. Results follow rhythm. Provision follows obedience. Breakthrough follows consistency. You say you need clarity, then get moving. You say you need strength, then enforce your law. You say you need favor, then become the man worthy of it by acting like it's already been given. Stop waiting for confidence. Start creating it. Confidence is not a gift. It is a consequence of integrity. When your actions finally match your words, your soul begins to trust you again. And that trust becomes power. So no more restarts. No more apologies to yourself. No more cycles that carry you back to zero. You must finish. Not for approval, not for applause, but because the man who finishes is no longer compatible with quitting. It doesn't matter how many times you've drifted before. It doesn't matter how many plans you've abandoned. It doesn't matter how long you've been inconsistent. All that matters now is what law you obey today, what rhythm you enforce today, what words you repeat today, because every moment is writing your identity. And the man you become is not decided in one day of glory. He is forged in 1,000 ordinary moments of obedience when quitting would have been easier. You must now fall in love with the unseen victories. The early morning repetition, the evening declaration, the silent step when no one is watching, the ordinary habit that looks small but rewires everything beneath the surface. This is how success is built, not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. Not in the results, but in the repetition. Not in the feeling, but in the finish. So ask yourself, are you willing to become boring for a season so that you can become unbreakable for a lifetime? Are you willing to trade hype for law, talk for transformation, excuses for execution? Say it again. I walk by law, not emotion. I obey my new pattern. I finish what I begin. This is how you end failure, not by avoiding it, but by outlasting it. You are not the man who starts over anymore. You are the man who wakes with intention, who speaks his law aloud before the world rises, who acts in rhythm whether he feels strong or not. You're not led by mood. You're led by mission. You are not ruled by your history. You are ruled by your future. And that future begins today. So write your definite chief aim. Speak it every morning and night. Move with it in your steps. Let it shape every decision. Let it rule your behavior until no other identity can survive in your body. Because the man who obeys his aim becomes undeniable. You no longer drift. You no longer delay. You no longer doubt. You finish, not because you are perfect, but because you are no longer available for anything less than law. Now walk in that. Walk as the man who commands his days, who silences the old voice, who no longer seeks rescue because he has already been rescued by his decision. Walk in completion. Walk in fire. Walk in finality. And let your life rise to obey you.